All right, everybody, this is a warning to all politicians. I'm running for president in 2024, part 121, and it is early in the morning, the 19th of November, in lovely Las Vegas. So, they're saying there's, more spikes in COVID, and they're going to lock down and all this, but you look, Gruesome Newsom out there in California got busted going to a party, no one's wearing a mask, birthday party, all this. Then he gives some phony baloney apology where he's smiling, or you could pretty much say laughing it the whole time, doing his best imitation of Barack Obama. And they all do that. Just lie with a big smile on your face. Keep telling that lie. Keep telling it. Keep telling it. Keep telling it. Till, people believe it. Like a lot of things. So, I got moved and stuff. I don't know if I mentioned that in my last video. I think I did, that I was going to be moving. So I got moved. And while I was home there, got a chance to watch the local news. And just about every local news station all running the same stories about Trump falsely claiming election fraud, will not concede, and all these people are starting to say, hey, it's hindering Biden and this and that and everything. Well, Al Gore didn't concede until I think it was December 10th with the Florida hanging Chad debacle. So Trump still is the president. He has every legal right to investigate and contest fraudulent voting, no matter who says it's minor or whatever. You have people out there, especially in the news media, the major networks, and then all your local networks doing the same thing. And it's like the Twilight Zone. It's like you might as well be watching state-run news in China or North Korea or someplace, some of these countries south of the border where they have dictators, and Cuba or wherever. You're going to get the state-run take on things, and that's all you're going to get. And it seems like all these, I know a lot of the things they do, they just pick up off the wire. It's from Associated Press or Reuters or one of these other big global news agencies, and probably even from CNN and things like that too. And then they just all copy. They just all repeat the story, even in the local news. There's no individual reports or stations that buck the trend, that are going to say, hey, some people on Fox are still saying, hey, Trump's got a legal right to do what he's doing and stuff. But it's just weird. It's like every news channel I put on, when they came to the politics, led with the same type of story, almost verbatim. And President Trump, falsely claiming fraud, is still refusing to concede that Joe Biden has won. And all this, it was like watching a bunch of puppets. You got to wonder, are these people bought and sold by a shadow government or something? They have something on all of them to where none of them will speak up and say, hey, this is what we're being told to read to you people. I know at the big networks and everything, they're not going to give up their big fat salaries, to tell you the truth, but so we got that going on, and we got now these machines and stuff, they're finding people linked to Biden and the Clintons and Pelosi and stuff, and even some of these people in these South American socialist or Central American socialist type governments where they've used these systems before. There's a Air Force general, retired general or something, says there were programs developed by the CIA after 9/11 to spy and to be able to manipulate just about everything, including voting, that they were going to use. They were using in foreign countries. And like I said, you got to look at the Arab Spring and everything like that. They've put these things into practice overseas, and there's no reason to think they wouldn't do it here. And you can look at how Kennedy tried to get rid of a bunch of these people and fired a bunch of them. And if you're like me and millions of other people, you think the CIA had something to do with his assassination. You can look, I'm surprised nobody brought up Benghazi to Joe Biden. When Hillary ran, that was brought up, and before she ran, that was brought up. We had an ambassador and other people who were murdered there, and that was on Joe Biden's watch. They were funding these extremist groups and giving them weapons to overthrow Gaddafi, to overthrow Assad in Syria, and to do other things within the region. And Trump put a stop to that. He got us the hell out of there. He said, we're not going to get involved in these things. He brought troops home. How are you going to convince Iran and other nations not to fund groups around the world if we're doing the same thing? And some will say, well, that's the type of world it is. You got to fight fire with fire and stuff. I don't believe you do it that way, and I don't believe you lie to the people of the nation, and I don't believe you create systems that can be used within your own country to put people in power. And you look at how Biden was losing to Trump, and then in the middle of the night in all these places, these contested cities, and I guess they call them battleground states and stuff, all of a sudden, overnight, everything changed. There's somebody there's a report now. Granted, I just saw it on InfoWars, so there's a lot of people say, well, there ain't no credibility to anything on there, but apparently there's they were reading an article somewhere that some mob guy in Philly says they were paid $10 a ballot to fill out phony ballots, and they filled out 300,000 of them or something like that, and delivered them to the election places in the middle of the night, all for Joe Biden. And curiously, he said something. He said in the article, it was and Sharpies were used. I guess that's so they would know how many they have to pay them for. Well, you also have a Sharpie conspiracy, if you want to call it that, in Arizona, and I believe Nevada too, where people were given Sharpies. And I don't know, that might be a way, try and conceal all the phony ones. Yeah, it was just regular people. We gave them Sharpies. It's no big deal. I don't know. Definitely a lot of fishy stuff going on. Definitely a lot of fishy stuff. So, also while I was home, got in a discussion / argument with my son about all of this and COVID and everything else. And, I know I ticked him off. I've always told him, be your own. He can be politically, he can do whatever he wants to. Religiously, I told him, on anything. I'm your father. I'm going to tell you to the best of my ability the truth about everything and the way life is. Tried to explain to him that it's not fair, that there's nothing on my birth certificate or anyone else's that says we get to go to work and grind it out every day so that Congress can take our money by force, willy-nilly, anytime they want to, for all kinds of programs, promise people all kinds of crap. And that they're full of shit when they talk about they're going to create all these jobs and it's green energy and all this, and tried to explain it to them that, these windmills and solar and stuff aren't so green. And that there's always a cause and effect, and that there's no free lunch, and that these people are just saying anything to get elected. And that all the information about global warming, most of it's anecdotal. Even brought up that, way back in the 70s, we were going to have another ice age is what they were saying. And he tells me, he says, well, they didn't have all the right instruments and this and that and everything. So it's, to me, I didn't think of it at the time. I should have said, oh, so if we would have said something that they were wrong back then, we would have been told we don't believe in science. Because God knows scientists are right about everything all the time, ain't they? Don't matter what field of it you go into, medical science, archaeology, physics, and, whatever it is. You'll always find where there's differing opinions. Then there's the status quo with, what a lot of people say, and then you find out years later, oh, maybe we was wrong about that. When they give you the anecdotal evidence on your local news about, oh, this is the warmest summer we ever had. Look how many days we've had a 90 plus, or, in my case in Arizona, how many 115, 116 days we've had this year. Yeah, let's graph it all out. Let's see what the averages are for the whole year. How many below 100 degree days? And you gotta look at it. You can't just say, oh, we've had 12 116 degree days this year, and the past decade we've only averaged about 8. That's supposed to prove global warming? I'm sorry, it doesn't. If you're basing global warming, look how huge this planet is, and you're going to base global warming off of the local temperature in Phoenix, fucking Arizona, over the course of a year? Are you kidding me? And you're going to call that scientific evidence? But, and then he brought up, well, I brought up, how Obama, demonized white people with white privilege and all that kind of crap, and how, you didn't get that on your own and stuff, coming from a jack-off who never had a job his whole entire life. He's going to lecture us on what we got and how we got it. So I was like, yeah, it's a good thing they warned us about all them white guys with deer rifles and Bibles after this summer. Sure glad we dodged that bullet. Holy mackerel. Glad law enforcement was keeping an eye on all them white guys that go hunting and prey. Not the looters and the arsonists that were running the streets all summer. And I explained to him how because he wasn't around, through the 80s when crack and all that into the 90s. And now, you know, how the black community says, the white man gave us all crack to keep us down. They gave it to now openly, hey, we're going to give you marijuana. And they all go, yeah. Well, got to let all black dudes out of prison because all they was doing was smoking weed. Yeah, well, guess what? If you're smoking weed, you're doing other drugs. And if you're doing drugs, more than likely, you're involved in some other illegal shit to pay for your drugs. People don't think anymore. And Portland just became Disneyland for all the drug dealers in the country because them morons up there decriminalized everything. I-5 is going to be the heroin highway. Heroin and fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine again probably, coming up to Portland. You think the drug gangs and shit are bad in Chicago? Woohoo! Wait till they come to Portland, you dumbasses. Wait till you start having all the drive-bys and shit with the drug gangs who are up there because you decriminalized drugs and now they have a great big fucking market. They're all going to want to move in there and they're all going to fight each other to get the territory to sell their fucking drugs. Yep, you got some winners up there in fucking Oregon. You moron politicians. So you're going to have to pay for all the criminal shit. You're going to have to pay for all the health problems, the overdoses, all that kind of stuff. You know, my son said, well, they're not going to try and get rid of guns. I'm like, yes, they are. And he's like, no, they're just going to make it tougher for criminals to get them. It's like criminals don't care. Well, they're going to make sure mental people don't get them so they don't go out and do school shootings. And it's like, really? How many people die in school shootings? Not that they're not bad. But compared to how many people are killed in traffic accidents, no one's checking the mental stability of people that are issued driver's licenses, are there? You got drunk drivers, you got people driving on drugs, you got people who just drive recklessly. How many people are killed on our highways every single year? I don't see any movement to restrict driver's licenses to people. Checking the mental stability of people going to get driver's licenses. All the road rage and shit. So, you know, and who decides somebody's mentally unstable to have a gun? So if you get in a domestic dispute or something sometime and your wife or in some cases your husband excuse me, makes a bunch of accusations about, you know, you're violent and you're psychotic or whatever and stuff. Is that enough to keep you from buying a gun to defend yourself? Now, I myself don't carry one anymore. The religion I believe in, I think so far from what I've seen online and on YouTube, from it says only people in authority, like police and stuff, should have weapons, or maybe even for hunting. I don't know, but you know, that's my personal choice, though. I'm not going to go around and try and enforce that on somebody else, especially when they're not going after the criminals and getting rid of the criminals. You know, if they'd start locking up these violent people for good or giving them the death sentence, maybe we wouldn't have so much of this stuff. And that's also one of the teachings I've learned in religion, that if there's somebody who commits murder, it's up to society it's their duty to get rid of that person, either to lock them up or if they don't want to pay to keep them locked up for their entire lives, to execute them. So, but hey, our prisoners here, they get people counting their calories, and they demand they want this and that, and they get all that kind of, you got people in prison demanding the state has to pay for their sex change operations. So we're going ass backwards here in America. And all these social programs and stuff, they want to be your pimp daddy, man. They want to be, in control. Whenever you need something, you got to go to them. And do you think it's really fair as an American citizen, if you get behind on your taxes, you get all kinds of penalties and interest, and even have your property taken from you, and maybe even thrown in jail? They don't show you no mercy and write it off. But they'll take tax dollars that we pay and give $180 million a year to Mexico and other places. They'll let all these people in the country and give them all kinds of free stuff. They'll pay for all kinds of programs for violent criminals, all kinds of stuff. But if you've been a decent, upstanding, tax-paying, hard-working American, and you have a little trouble and you get behind, it's, hey, screw you, buddy. Screw you, asshole. And that's why I don't really think the Democratic Party or even the Republican Party understand why so many people voted for Trump. Trump's the first one that said, hey, I'm going to set things right. I'm going to look out for Americans. And by looking at, at all the propaganda for the left and everything, I really don't think they get it. It's so much easier, instead of them trying to understand, it's so much easier that anyone who disagrees with them, just call them a racist. End the conversation. You're a racist. You don't want Mexicans coming into the country. You want them to be detained. You're a racist. Well, why don't you go after the Mexican government and make them take care of their people? Why don't you make them change laws in their country, or make laws in their country for minimum wage and welfare and all that kind of crap? Nothing on my birth certificate says I'm responsible for Mexican nationals. Nothing in the Constitution says I'm responsible for Mexican nationals. Nothing in the Constitution says Congress can take money I have earned, I have busted my ass for, and take it and give it to some bitch who can't keep her fucking legs closed and pops out a kid every other year so she can get more welfare. Do you understand out there, America, what they're doing to you? That they have no right to do what they are doing to you? And they call it wealth redistribution. Well, I'm sorry. Go take LeBron James' $16 million fucking mansion away and half of his salary or more, and dole that out to all these welfare mothers and leave the rest of us alone. They've got such deep pockets when it comes to putting their hands in our pockets. When it comes to their money, you ain't touching that. They put that in all kinds of tax-deferred shit so they can keep it. They even start phony baloney charities and pay all, the money doesn't go to anybody. It all goes for administration, who's run by their buddies and their political partners and stuff. Big-ass salaries paid for consultants and all kinds of crap. No money. They can have a charity for cancer. And I guarantee you, they ain't giving shit to anybody who has cancer. They ain't giving shit to any research firm, trying to end cancer. Joe Biden's freaking cancer charity included. No money went to anybody. It all went to people who were running the charity. Didn't go for research, didn't go help a family who had kids who had cancer or anything like that. Nope. They paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary to people, individually making, $500,000 from the money they collected. It was supposed to be for Joe Biden's cancer charity. What if anyone who speaks truth anymore, you're just a racist. You're just a hateful redneck racist. Yeah, making weed legal and all that and everything, and like Bernie said, hey, we're gonna let black people and Mexicans run the dispensaries instead of letting these corporate people in there and all this and everything. Well, that's because Bernie and probably a whole shitload of other politicians already running the farms, the dope growing farms. A lot of them already invested in all that shit, so they're gonna sell it to the people in the hood who can run their own stores and sell it to their neighbors and their kids in the hood. And 10 years from now, we can hear how the white man gave us dope to keep us down. Excuse me. Got the heater on. It's a bit dry in here. So, you really got to pay attention to what's going on in the world. And you got to look at the other side. Look for information. When somebody says, hey, windmills or wind turbines and solar ain't that great, it's not good. You can't just pass it off. Oh, you don't care about the planet. We got to do something. Global warming. Oh, maybe you ought to look into some of the research on the other side. It was in Target. And over the speaker in between the, Muzak, they were advertising certain stuff, and this one kept playing. It was a black guy, he's an author, and he just wrote a book. Something about having an uncomfortable conversation with a black man. And then there's something else about racism and all this and everything. And it's like, really? Do you really want a conversation? Because anytime a white person says anything about, anything, they're called Karens or this or that and everything else. And none of our concerns are taken seriously. So, it's a bunch of hooey. And their whole thing for healing is going to be you taking a knee for BLM. That's going to be their healing, you admitting your white guilt and your white privilege. There's a double standard with all that hate crime stuff and everything, too. Look up the Knoxville 5. Now, if that had been 5 white people done that to a black couple, they'd been executed already. Would have been hate crime, racist America, hate crime, hate crime, hate crime. They didn't charge them with hate crimes for what they did to that white couple, though. I think maybe one of them got the death sentence. I don't know. Does Tennessee have the death sentence? Check that out. Watch the court testimonies, too. Watch the one guy who said technically he can't be he's not responsible. He didn't actually force the girl to do anything. That he told her he would help her escape if she gave him oral sex. And she agreed to it. So technically, he couldn't be held responsible because he didn't force her. She did it willingly. To get out of being gang raped by him and his fucking buddies. To maybe try and go get some help. I don't think she was doing it because she was really interested in that contract. But that moron tried to and told that shit to the judge. That's his excuse to the judge. Oh, I enforced her, Your Honor. She agreed. And needless to say, he did not help her escape either. He took part in her murder. So, really strange times in America. Really strange times. So, wish you all the best out there. Maybe I'll do another one here real quick. But either way, God bless. Adios.